Thank you once again for joining me. I welcome you to this very interactive program where we discuss matters relevant to our country's development. On tonight's program, we'll engage representatives of the Dominica Association of Industry and Commerce, the DIC, and the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association, the DHTA, on the work these organizations are doing to enhance business activity in Dominica as we contend with the fallout of COVID-19. In preparation for the 2020-2021 national budget earlier this year, we obtained valuable input from the DIC and the DHTA on measures to boost economic activity and provide more opportunity to citizens to participate in business activity. As I mentioned earlier this week, I am pleased with the increasing advocacy of the DIC on behalf of young and established entrepreneurs in this country to help them bring value to the enterprises and to grow their businesses. Similarly, the DHTA has adopted an advocacy role on behalf of its membership in a period when we have seen significant drop in tourism activity due to the coronavirus. The DHTA played a key role in the development of the Managed Experience, now called the Safe in Nature campaign, to breathe new life into the sector and encourage tourists to once again visit our island. The new president of the DIC is Mr. Stephen Lander, and the new president of the DHTA is Mr. Hans Schilders, who are joining me this evening to discuss exciting initiatives underway to boost economic activity here in our country, Dominica. You're welcome to call in with your questions for Mr. Lander and Mr. Schilders on 225-3400 and 611-3400. We look forward to your calls as always, and of course your WhatsApp messages, questions are also welcome. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How was your weekend?
Excellent, thank you very much.
You have an establishment in Portsmouth, in Picard.
Yes, indeed.
Majestic view there.
Yeah. Thank you, yes.
You want to tell us some about
Hotel de Champs, which is our little hotel, which we have now for more than 12 years. And we're very happy to have that. It's challenging, as you already mentioned, at the moment, but we're doing our very best. And we feel confident that things will get better step by step.
Step by step, excellent. And of course, Stephen Lander, you're the, what do you call yourself, general manager, the managing director of the First Caribbean Bank?
We refer to the role within the organization as country head.
Country head.
Across our footprint, so country head First Caribbean Dominica.
Well, that's a great achievement for a young person like yourself. I may have taught you at school, right? Yes. You see, I feel like an old man, you know.
I'm thankful for the contributions that you made to my development. Absolutely.
But happy to have you, gentlemen. Here, welcome. Can you both tell me about your organization and what are the objectives of your respective organizations?
All right, so I'll take that one first. So the Chamber of Commerce is really charged with leading stakeholder engagement with a view to increasing the productivity and competitiveness of private enterprises in Dominica, and doing so helping the growth and the development of the economy. And I mean, that's a broad explanation, but what that looks like day to day is really us paying attention to the developments in the environment around us, engaging our members for feedback, and engaging stakeholders like the government of Dominica about what changes we can make to respond and enhance the environment so enterprises can thrive.
Okay. Excellent. Do I call you Mr. Schilders, Hans?
I prefer Hans.
You prefer Hans, okay.
My last name seems to be confusing for people, so Hans is fine.
Hans is fine, okay. You can call me Skerrit, Skerrit is fine as well. Yeah. But please tell us about the DHTA.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister, for giving us the opportunity to represent the DHTA. The DHTA is the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association, and it's a membership organization, first of all. But next to our members, we want to represent all the tourism stakeholders, and especially the tourism service providers, anybody working, anybody active in the tourism industry. Now, in close contact with our members, what we want to try after this big downturn in the COVID time is to bring more business, better business, and hopefully over the next 1-2 years also a more sustainable business to our members. We want to work with them as tourism entrepreneurs and see that they get back on their feet.
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you were the president of the DHTA. How do you define your role and the challenges you face, especially in this extraordinary times?
Thank you. Yes, I see my role, first of all, as working with the team. The team is the board that we have at the DHTA, which are all tourism entrepreneurs, and we have an office staff that is functioning very well. And we also, in this COVID time, want to try to help our members use 21st century tools. What we have seen due to the COVID and the development of Zoom, that the acceptance now of 21st century tools is a lot better. We have created, we were in that process before COVID started, a digital guidebook. We are helping our members setting up their property management systems. We are working with our members on a DHTA booking line, and this is totally new now after the COVID. We want to really help them with a business exchange platform. So I see my role, and I'm sort of lucky to be an IT man originally before I came to Dominica, help the members get their businesses in the 21st century and work with them closely as team.
Well, and what has been the reaction to this proposal?
I think it's been very good. We have about 30 plus certified accommodations at the moment, next to certified taxi drivers, certified tour guides. But as DHTA, we have created a WhatsApp group with all the certified accommodations, and there is a very active exchange of information. The properties are helping each other. In all times, we used to say we create committees. We now prefer to say we have on WhatsApp, we have action groups, and they're active 7 days a week, day and night.
Excellent. I'm happy to hear. Now, Lando, you are the DIC. You two are concerned with creating opportunities for your membership.
Absolutely.
What are the ways you are exploring to help your members source these new opportunities?
Yeah, and it's interesting that Hans touched on 21st century tools and so on. And what has been apparent over the last year or so is that or 2 years in Dominica's case, is that disasters and shock events cause disruption, and out of disruption comes opportunity. One of the things that has been brewing as an undercurrent is the sort of digitization of how we transact, how we do business, payment systems, etc. And I preach to the membership that this is something that we cannot ignore. And COVID as a shock event, I think, brought that into sharper focus for us, that we have to modernize, to use a word, the way that we do business and change the way that we approach it. And in doing so, that opens up a lot of opportunities for us as well. It helps us to touch markets that we probably wouldn't serve in the normal modus operandi. And it helps us to deliver a higher degree of convenience to our customers. And what I've seen over the last year or 2 years, as I put it, is there is a greater focus on convenience. And if I can get into a transaction and there is less friction, I am more attracted to that particular service provider as opposed to another. So that is a broad theme that we're seeing that is becoming a challenge, but also presenting opportunities for membership. And we want to ensure that our members are equipped to take advantage of that. Now, on that point, I must commend some of the enterprises in Dominica for how they reacted in COVID. You see supermarkets, for example, moving towards taking orders on WhatsApp and delivering your groceries to your door, but that is not necessarily a sustainable model. So how do we take that and parlay that into something that is continued, where that convenience is not lost to the consumer, and you differentiate your service to a point where it's highly demanded. And that's something that we want our members to take into consideration.
Okay, excellent. Now, the DIC has joined the government to launch the Dominica Entrepreneurship and Innovation Hub.
Right.
Can you describe for our listeners and viewers what this program is about? What are the objectives of the program?
In summary, it was really a capacity building exercise. Young entrepreneurs, and as someone who's in finance, I hear it all the time. They say, what is the biggest challenge to your business? And they say it's access to finance. And for many years, I've argued that finance alone is not the issue. Finance and access to finance as an issue can be fixed really as an academic exercise. We figure out how to get your financials in order, you check a few boxes, and you can largely approach a financial institution and get qualified. Managing a business is more nuanced, right? You need people who've had experiences before you so you don't repeat the same mistakes. Those are the people that need to be guiding you. So the hub, as we call it, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Hub, was meant to expose entrepreneurs to each other, so they exchange experiences and learn from each other, and also expose them to mentors within Dominica and throughout the Caribbean and the Americas who've had experiences that they could share and teach to those young entrepreneurs. And it was a great value for those participants who actually came through the program.
Excellent. Now, I mean, we have invested heavily in small business development. We've created a small business unit.
Right.
It has now been elevated to a department of government. We have provided loans through the Aid Bank and, of course, through the NDFD at concessionary rates. Do you think these interventions are useful, and what do you see are the benefits of those interventions to our economy?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I had the chance, and I was honored to present to the young entrepreneurs this week, and one of the things that I pointed out to them is, as a banker, I'm happy to say I'm not your only solution. And businesses go through different stages in their life cycle, and at various phases, there are different entities that need to help you out. So it may be the small business unit that gives you the added value of, say, writing a business plan, managing the business in its infancy stages, providing you with technical support, right? A commercial bank is not necessarily placed to do that. So all of these parts work together to create this sort of environment that a business can go from its infancy phase and graduate through the stages, and you have all these institutions that are backing you along the way. Government, public, and commercial financial enterprises like the one that I manage, right? So I think all of those things are contributing to the success of these businesses and the overall success of the economy.
Now, both the DIC and the DHD have worked closely with government to develop guidelines for the resumption of activity within the tourism sector in particular. When we speak of the managed experience, how do we define this concept? Because it's a new concept, obviously, responding to COVID-19 and ensuring that we can have visitors coming in, while at the same time protecting the country, the citizens from being infected with COVID-19. How do we go about defining this, and how do we go about implementing it?
Thank you very much for asking that question. As you know, the managed experience is something that is in my tourism heart very much now. I think it's a unique offer to visitors of Dominica. It is a great result of an excellent format of collaboration between multiple ministries, authorities, the private sector, the public sector. I think that together in the last 8, 9, 10 weeks, with also your guidance in it and your instrumental work at certain moments, we have achieved a result that we now have to prove that it will really do what we want it to do. Priority 1 is national health safety. There is no discussion on that topic. Priority 2 is we try to bring new visitors to Dominica. What we are seeing in the few weeks that we are getting closer to developing the managed experience, that first of all, Dominicans who want to return home are using this opportunity. They're very happy with it. They come home towards independence. We see people talking to coming home for Christmas. They come for a longer time. They accept that they have to stay a week in quarantine, but they feel that the format of quarantine that we are now developing is so much more pleasant that they want to take that and then be somewhat longer. The monitor group that we are putting in place is very important. All parties are represented in that group, and I think that there is a unique situation for Dominica to show itself on the other Caribbean islands, that we are carefully modeling a format in which we try to make sure that the national health safety stays number one, but that we can really create a format of acceptable tourism. And I think we need to carefully go, but make sure we go forward.
But I mean, the pandemic is still raging in many parts of the world, and many of our source markets as well too. But do you think that we are ready to receive visitors back into Dominica?
Yes, I think I'm confident. I must give compliments to the Ministry of Health and to the border opening protocols as we have them. And when we were talking about creating the managed experience, I've been able to say that on our end, the DHTA, we do believe that we should not touch any of these protocols that are in place because they have proven to work. We have been able, the Ministry of Health team has been able to catch a few of the difficulties, and so that stays there. We need our owners and managers of the certified accommodations, and we as DHTA are making sure that we help them, that we remind them, that we train them. They are responsible. When we create these managed experiences, they stay in charge, they are the leaders, they are responsible, and they need to accept that responsibility or not do it.
Now, the properties have to be certified to participate. What other actions have you taken as a DIC to assist your members to get certified?
Well, DHTA as a small organization is not a trainer by itself, and we are not doing the certification. We are not the organization doing the certification. But we work closely with the members. We have an excellent cooperation with the Discover Dominica Authority, and they have responded. On their website now are the lists of certified taxi drivers, the list of certified tourism operators. They are working hard to get more dive shops certified and other activities certified. And so even those accommodations who are already certified have to resubmit a plan in which they acknowledge their responsibility for this, and each activity that they want to undertake with their guests under the managed experience, under the Safe in Nature branding, they have to detail it out in full detail. So our organization, our board members have created sample plans. We are helping our members. We are training our members, putting our members in trainings with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, who have a range of PAHO, CARPA, and WHO trainings. We inform our members of the upcoming taxi trainings. So we motivate and stimulate our members to be well equipped and to understand what their role is that they have to play.
Now, for us as a government, we've always maintained that the safety of our people is paramount. And we have approached this pandemic to ensure that we provide and we ensure the safety of our citizens. And we have not compromised on this. Now, as much as possible, we want as a country to minimize the risk to our citizens. The tourists are coming in, the visitors are coming in. People are concerned about they adhering to the guidelines set forth by the Ministry of Health. How do you, in the DIC, respond to this concern of the public?
When we, in our collaboration with the various ministries and authorities, have defined how the experience, managed experience will work, an important part of that is the monitor group. I mentioned the word a moment ago. This is a group where all parties are participating. The DAIC, the DHTA, but also the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Tourism, the Discover Dominica, and this group will be charged with following up on what is happening in the market. This group will also have the possibility to revoke certifications if participants do not stick to all the rules. So there is an organism that will help us to make sure that we stay. And what we also want, and I had the pleasure during the press launch to bring that to the attention, we asked the Dominicans, all Dominicans, to participate in this process. Tourism is everybody's business. It's important that the country rebuilds the tourism economy, not only for the work of the people in the tourism, but also for the country to bring in the currency again. So we're all carefully working on that. And if Dominicans have a concern, we ask them to express that. And we ask to them, we will make access available to the monitor group, that the monitor group can investigate any problems that the public sees, and that we make sure that we put procedures in place to keep that in control.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm happy for the strong leadership and partnership of the DIC in this regard. We're all in this together. We as a government, we appreciate the impact on the tourism industry which COVID has had, and whatever we can do just to ensure that there is some stimulation in the tourism industry, we prepare to do so, obviously, with the safety of everybody concerned as our paramount preoccupation. So we really want to thank you and the DIC for this very strong partnership. And it will certainly, I believe, redound to the benefit of the entire country. Now, we often hear complaints about the experience at the airports, London. How can the private sector work with the government to improve the reception at the ports of entry in order to improve on the visitor experience? Because this is the first point. People know it is COVID period. People know that they have to go through certain guidelines. They have to go through certain checks. But what are some of the recommendations you have? And of course, Hans, you can always come in on this question.
Yeah, one thing that I have seen actually implemented elsewhere that made a significant impact is actually replacing the personnel there with civilian staff. And there was a whole program of training, service training that is, that redirected the thinking of those individuals to say that you are not there as to police the border, so to speak, but to welcome guests. And over a period of time, they were able to do that training, change the thinking, change the mentality, and the feedback from the experience in the airport actually shifted positive. It was quite an issue for this tourism-dependent nation. They recognize, and like I said, I mean, we have police officers that are performing the function now at the border. Not to say that police officers are bad service people, but functionally they're in a certain mind frame, in terms of enforcement and law enforcement. So it was shifted to a civilian function, and there was a lot of emphasis on service training. Again, driving home the message that you are there to welcome guests as opposed to police the border.
Hans?
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to what Stephen said. I think that Discover Dominica Authority is our tourism authority, part of the Ministry of Tourism, and I would hope, I know they're already doing a lot of things in this time, but I would hope that maybe they can free up somebody who is at the airport, because the people come in and have to go through all the stages. There is waiting time, and a little bit with a smile, but serious, they could wear a face mask with a big smile drawn on it, and as a Discover Dominica person, go to the people and ask, do you have any questions? Can I help you with something? So to take the tension of the waiting time. And one other remark, if you allow me, PM.
Sure.
We have this online questionnaire. People have to fill that in. I'm an IT man originally in my previous work and life, and we could maybe, when people submit, make sure that they get an immediate confirmation that they have submitted to the email address that they filled in, giving the QU number and maybe telling them what's going to happen next, and say very clearly, this is not your approval, but just making sure that they get confirmed that they have made the submission.
I think these are reasonable suggestions. And
Short and
I'm
long
sure,
term, yeah.
I'm sure the government is watching this program and listening, and the government take note of this. I agree with this. I think they're reasonable. I also believe that the airport is a bit too cold.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's Corona time, and and people have to do for this test and these protocols and so forth. But I agree that it should be a little bit lively, because people travel for several hours and they're coming in, and so we have taken note of this, and I'm sure we shall respond in the affirmative on this. You're free to call. Telephone numbers 225-3400 and 611-3400. 225-3400 and 611-3400. Now, Lando, we have launched this this managed experience as we're discussing. What are the views of the DAIC though? Is this something that we should continue to pursue?
I think it's something that we almost have to do, because certainly the alternative would be to sort of wait until there's absolute certainty about where COVID goes, and we don't have the luxury of that amount of time. So we need to see a gradual reversion to business as usual. Now, some people say business unusual, some people say the new normal, but the thing is that whole space is undefined. Who can tell me in definite terms what new normal means? So what we need is we need to take baby steps, understanding that there will be risks, and we have to manage those risks as we go along. And that is at the core of the management experience, managing the risks.
We have a call. Hello. Hi, good evening. Hello. Hi. If you lower the volume of your television, then we'll hear you. Okay. I will be most grateful if when you call, you would turn off the volume of your radio or your television, and simply ask your question. We will certainly hear you, and you'll hear us. You wanted to?
Yeah, so I was just saying, we have to take small steps, and as I said, recognize that there are risks that come along with those, and take deliberate action towards managing those risks. And I think it's a unique opportunity to leverage the resilient brand of Dominica, right? To say despite all this, here it is that we can give you an experience that is safe. And we need to take that story and package it in terms of all of Dominica's experiences. I mean, it goes back to disasters like Maria and how we were able to rebound and translate it into something that is bigger than tourism. Here are the reasons why this is a great place to live. Here are the reasons why this is a great place to do business. And that's something that we can really drive by leveraging that brand.
Well, my personal view is that I believe it can work. I believe monitoring is going to be key. And monitoring has to be done by both the public and private sector. Right. We must be diligent at it, so that we, wherever issues arise, we can address them jointly, quickly. But personally, I believe it's important that we welcome visitors to Dominica, and to seek to use this opportunity to revive the economy. Yep. Now, we launched this Safe in Nature concept last week, and promotion is expected to start in earnest and so forth. But what more do you gentlemen believe the government can do, or we can do together as a country, to revive business activity here following the impact of COVID-19?
I believe that the great example of collaboration that we already have seen reaching this point can surely continue in the line of marketing and sales. We have a Ministry of Tourism with a very active minister, supported by a parliamentary secretary and a permanent secretary, who can give us strategic direction. We have a Discover Dominica authority with very experienced people in there, and Mr. Colin Piper, who has been leading the tourism now for a good number of years. And we have a drive in the DHTA more than ever to turn every opportunity into a real booking for an activity for them. We want to get back in business. Now, this is the time to put at least those three parties together shortly and say, how can we turn what we have now, safe in nature branding, how can we turn this into a social media campaign, into a Google promotion campaign, where each of us take the responsibility. The Ministry of Tourism, Strategy, Discover Dominica, Traffic, DHTA, turning into real bookings, and make it one platform, one technical system. And I think we also should involve the Ministry of Digital Economy, Honorable Senator Kassani Laville. I would hope to meet with him also shortly on this.
Sure. Let's take a call there. Hello, caller, please.
Yes,
Hi, good evening.
Yes, I'm holding.
Go ahead, please. You're on with us.
Oh, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I'd like to compliment both heads of the DHTA and the DIC for showing great leadership as their predecessors, Mr. Kenny Green and Miss, I forget her name now, she was head of Fort Young.
Yeah.
Marvin.
But Marvin, all directing these sectors, the business community and now tourism, in a good way. Hans is known for his very frank views over the years, and he's done a lot in the Portsmouth area developing his hotel and tourism generally. I am glad he had nothing controversial to say. Tonight, representing the very good relationship that is being built with government, and clearly satisfied, as I know most other stakeholders are, in the direction of the future of tourism. It's going through difficult times, but we will rebound for sure. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're asking what additional actions or initiatives can the government put in place to stimulate economic activity?
Yeah. So first, let me just acknowledge that when the private sector faces the type of challenges that we face, and you're forced to furlough workers and shut down operations, etc. Usually, what is expected and what has happened in our case is that the public sector spending plays a bigger role. What the government can probably do more deliberately is ensure that some of that spending is actually directed to the private sector entities that continue to operate. So a lot of stuff that we're doing in Dominica now is construction oriented. I mean, we're building a lot of homes and so on. And if private sector opportunities are allowed to bid for the supply of certain things, it may be doors, windows, whatever is needed for these projects, at least that spending goes to help those businesses survive the turbulent waters that we're facing now. So, not saying that this is not happening now, but a deliberate effort to ensure that it happens and continues to happen is certainly welcome from the government's perspective.
I think maybe between us, we need to have a session where we can share more details about these projects and the procurement opportunities, and those who have the ability to supply these goods and services could certainly avail themselves.
What I know that Stephen is also doing in the DAIC, and what we at the DHTA, for me as a new president, what we are defining is that business continuity plans need to be put in place. Now, we have very small businesses that are members of the DHTA, so you have to adapt them, because when we think business continuity plan, we think of organizations with hundreds of people who have complicated plans for that. No, there are formats that we can do, but what we are looking for is the right consultants that we maybe have in the country, in the small business unit, or some of our companies have these people. We may have to hire some consultants to help our small and medium members because we had the shock of Erika, the shock of Maria. Now we have the shock of Corona. Other things may come in the future, and we can work with our members to have a better, sustainable, stable business. And we can try to work like a small country like Ireland in Europe has done, set up a master plan for the next 6 to 9 months. And maybe that is surely where we can take the same we did to come to the managed experience, bring all parties together, and have a think tank how Dominica can make its own master plan for the next 6 to 12 months.
Sounds good. Now, we are certainly developing, as a government, a closer relationship with the DHTA and the DIC, and I say so with the greatest of sincerity. We look forward to strengthening and deepening that collaboration. At the end of the day, the country benefits, and if the country benefits, everybody who resides in the country will benefit from this. We will not always agree. We will see things from a different perspective, but we need to create an environment where we can openly and transparently and objectively discuss issues of national importance and so on. So we look forward to strengthening this, and I offer this collaboration and this cooperation to both of the organizations going forward. But how do you think the DIC and DHTA and government can work even more closely to further the goals of investors in Dominica? And when I say investors, I'm talking about everybody who is in business.
Yeah, I'm glad you said everyone in business. But to start, I think what lacks at times is the exchange of information. Ultimately, when a request is made from by the private sector, it's because they have information that is telling them that request is valid. Likewise, when the government considers the request, there are other bits of information that they need to consider before making the decision. I think the exchange of that information is of paramount importance, because what we can do then is understand the perspective of each of the parties and probably come to some middle ground that serves both purposes. And there have been lots of opportunities to provide feedback, to inform budget decisions, etc. Sometimes the decisions are positive, sometimes they're negative, but we don't quite know why. And if we have the why, we could put together a working group or some sort of thing, that group that looks at the core issue and figures out, because ultimately what we're trying to do is find a fine balance between the stakeholder interests. On your point of everyone benefiting, we have to take a close look at the macro issues. If you've had a chance to review the Ease of Doing Business Index for 2020, you will know that Dominica fell 8 places, from 103 to 111, although our score remained the same. And it means that our peers are doing things to improve the situations in their economies while we've remained stagnant. And that cannot be the case. For us to be competitive and move forward, we have to be actively looking at those macro issues that improves the business environment so all the enterprises can thrive.
Hans?
Yes, thank you. Stephen is in a unique position. He's the country manager of a financial institution, and I'm very happy that he's there and that he's in that sense close to us, because DAIC and DHTA share their office for their office staff, and so we have a lot of contact. I'm a little bit more of the little entrepreneur, and I see a lot of my members in the DHTA as independent, self-employed people. Now, I hope that over the next 2 years in my presidency, I can bring them more from seeing themselves as self-employed to tourism entrepreneurs. And a tourism entrepreneur is somebody who sees opportunities that come. I say to people, an entrepreneur is somebody who's swatting all the time. And swatting is not a real verb, but SWOT is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And if you're an entrepreneur, you are in a changing landscape. As the government, you determine for a part that landscape. You have the possibility to do that. You have the responsibility to do that. And we need to see when new possibilities come that we use them. Now, we will have to help some of our members in what we call loan coaching, and surely the innovative hub and what Stephen was talking about before fits into that. When we know that you announced that there is 30 million that you want to make available to the businesses, not only to tourism, but to businesses. Then what we need to do is help the members of the business community to see themselves as investors in the country. Because I think that it is your intention that that 30 million is really invested in the industry, in the country, both tourism and other industry. But if people see themselves just as, oh, I'm an independent worker, investing is not for me, we need to take them by the hand in a hands-on workshop and in a hand-holding process to make them, give them the possibility to invest in themselves, in their own business, to get their share of the 30 million and invest that in moving forward with their industry.
Excellent. We shall take a 2-minute break and we will be right back with you. Thank you very much. Hurricane 2017, of course, COVID. We're very pleased with the progress. We are waiting with great anticipation for the completion of the project, where we can welcome guests. But this is a major investment in the country, and of course, in particular, in North Dominica. And the partnership between Anichi and the government has been very mutually beneficial. For us, it is about creation of jobs, both in construction and during the operations of the hotel, bringing in foreign exchange where we have tourists coming in, and having the multiplier effect on the economy. So there's a significant amount of money being spent during the construction phase, and as the developer highlighted, there are a number of local contractors and subcontractors and workers who are engaged on the site. So one can appreciate the circulation of money amongst the population here in Dominica. So we're very pleased with the progress, and having the name Marriott attached to this development brings an added plus, not only to this property but to the country. And I think with the plans the government has for the construction of the airport, international airport, will certainly enhance our opportunities here in Dominica. Okay, welcome back. And again, if you wish to call, the number is 225-3400 and 611-3400. My guests are here and they'll be more than willing to respond to your questions or suggestions. Now, one of the my preoccupations in the country is on the beautification and cleanliness of Dominica. We say that we are the nature isle of the Caribbean, and some say the world, and I accept that, and I believe so. I believe, we have the natural fauna and flora in the country, and the serenity of our country is almost unparalleled. But I have a concern about the efforts to keep the country clean and beautiful. What are some of the recommendations you have? I mean, we've introduced, for example, the National Employment Program, and we've created the beautification component of it, and all fairness to them, they're doing a fantastic job in many villages across Dominica. Sorry, let us take a call and I'll come back to my question. Yes, caller, please.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm very interested in for a while, you have to consider. Just a few suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that Dominica might be a good position to promote post-COVID rehabilitation. Okay? Persons who have been infected and they want to increase their health and wellness after they try to recover. Might be a good aspect to look at. Another aspect of it would be the social distancing types of tourism. I've been trying to make contact with some of the ministries to deal with some investment. For instance, some of my land is apparently being taken for the airport. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to see if it's possible for me to trade some of the land for something, another piece of land that I could introduce some different aspects of tourism to Dominica. Mm-hmm. I have a track record of introducing three industries to Dominica. I was Dominica's first dive instructor, and I had to essentially discover most of the sites in Dominica. Mm-hmm. When I first went to the tourism department at that time, Dominica had no reefs. But indeed it had, they were very close to shore, so I had to show them how where the reefs were, etc. And of course, the result of that. In the whale watching, I was told by it was my high school biology teacher. He said, no, there's no whales in Dominica, but I said, no way. But it took a UN visitor from the United Nations who I took whale watching, and he saw it, and then the following day he had this meeting with Mr. Surrender, my teacher. And he said, no, there's no whales in Dominica. He said, no, I was out and I saw 20-something whales yesterday, And so it became another thing. So I would like to introduce things like adventure sports that do not spread COVID. Say, for instance, aquatherapy, aqua joggers. There are things like kite surfing, windsurfing, paddleboarding, adventure, horseback riding, these type of things. That you can get the clients to come down, but they would be in compliance with the new policy where you have that is managed tourism, the managed vacation or the managed stay, where by the very nature of these activities, they have to remain distant. So there are a lot of different aspects. You have to look outside the box. Just as you would recognize, the two industries that I introduced to Dominica, which is the whale watching and everything. After each of the hurricanes, as soon as the water calmed down, you could resume the business. Of course, the boats have been damaged and so on, those who are not protected. But those who don't, who have not been destroyed, they could resume business immediately. Whereas after Hurricane Maria, most of the forest has been damaged. What has been keeping the country's tourism up? It's the same to industries. And then you see, by empowering the persons, and persons who, most of the people I trained in those industries were guys who would have otherwise fallen by the wayside. You see, people who do not even have a high school education, but yet they've gone on to become, like, take for example, Jerry Dowie. He completed high school, but he's able to have his own business, get his own boat, he has his own two homes now, owns his farm, based on just empowering him, encouraging him, and looking outside the box. So I'm hoping that my communication will be to go through to the relevant ministries. I've been trying for since June to get through, but not getting through. I don't know why my emails are not being answered, and my phone calls are not being answered. But I'm ready to introduce more industries and to help Dominica get over it. I'm educated as a medical doctor, and I see, for instance, the hyperbaric chamber, which could be used very well for stabilizing the COVID, as well as to help the patients to recover, but it's not being utilized. I'm trying to see if we can get it done in an island to see if they will adopt it. There's fantastic research. The first set of treatment of things was done in 1920 for the Spanish flu. The hyperbaric chamber was used by a professor to save many of his medical students. And he actually developed a hyperbaric chamber with 33 rooms in it that treated many people and saved many lives. In China, in Wuhan, China, they started using it and have had success. There's several other countries now doing research and finding fantastic success in not having to use ventilators, non-invasive. Just some of the things I'm just throwing some seed for thoughts. But I hope I can get some communication with the ministry when I send an email, etc.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, caller. I think a very constructive points there. I will also personally try to make contact with you as well. Any reaction to what the caller said?
Yes, I think that creating innovative forms of tourism, I heard the word kite surfing, for example. I know when we had the students here still on island, some of them were very keen on wave surfing. Now, if we want to give that a format of tourism, we'll have to work on a proper business plan. At the moment, this very moment, it's very difficult to start something new because the number of tourists is very limited. Okay. If you want to start something new, you'll have to make sure you bring in enough people. We had free diving, which developed shortly before the COVID time, and we now see in the Soufrière area that there are several people already coming to Dominica, planning to come to Dominica to do free diving. So apparently, innovative tourism is possible, but we'll have to help people to make a good business plan for it.
Sure. Another caller. Good evening. Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yes. PM Clayton Felix from Sir.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Yes. PM, another great program today. And I always listen to what's happening in Dominica.
Sure.
I would like to make a suggestion on the first. You asked earlier 2 questions about the arrival of. What do you do for the arrival of tourists on the airport?
Yes. Yeah.
Just the connection.
If you maybe you could send us a WhatsApp message, we can also get this through WhatsApp as well. Sorry if I guess there's a connection problem there. The issue of the beautification and the cleanliness of the country, Lando.
So, yeah, I think definitely the NEP program adds value, but it's a cleanup program really, and so it's remedial in nature. And so there has to be some simultaneous efforts to fix the issue at its core. Part of it is we have to get back to the culture of understanding that, we can't pollute the streets and dump our rubbish and so on the ground, and then someone will clean it up in the morning before we come to work the next day. So that is a Herculean effort that has to come from multiple channels. There has to be a campaign targeting adults of various age ranges, but there also has to be a program, I think, within the educational curriculum that instills that sort of value in terms of the tourism product and taking care of it into our kids. So that's a long-term thing. We also need to do some work on the waste management side. I think it's something that has eluded proper management for a number of years. There are successful models that have been implemented in territories of similar size to us. Like Singapore is one that has done a brilliant job in terms of waste management and managing this image as a green nation. I think we can learn a lot from that model. So we have to look at what has worked well elsewhere and try to implement it here.
Hans?
Yes, I think that indeed waste management is one aspect. Instead of saying that the Dominica Solid Waste Company isn't doing enough, if you are a business enterprise and you produce waste, why not use one of the now existing private enterprises in Dominica to get your waste out? You don't have to wait for the public unit to come do that. As a company, you can take your own responsibility. If it is to be, it's up to me. That is an entrepreneurial approach. And the other thing, if every accommodation and every tourism activity in Dominica would take 50 feet left and 50 feet right of where they are and put flowers and beautify that part of their street, that would be many times 50 feet left and right to help with the beautification.
It's make a huge difference, and
It's
maybe that's
certainly
something,
something we can take up.
something we can certainly work on. Now, I am happy to know that both the DAIC and the DHTA are beginning to take more vocal positions on national issues affecting the country. And I have said many times before that civil society needs to make its voices heard on issues and to help educate and inform the public on national and international issues. But do you agree that you have a bigger role to play in this regard, in speaking on national issues, on educating the public, on informing the public? Hans?
Yes, I believe that we need to work as membership organizations with our members and make it clear to our members that we have passed the time that the members come together in an AGM once a year, they vote for a board, and now they don't have to take active roles anymore. We are in the 21st century. We have different communication tools. Communication is key, so members can take part. And members need to develop a mindset that as entrepreneurs all together, not just the few that are chosen in the board, are the ones that need to develop the private sector. We now have a new board since 2 months. We are working and are almost done creating our list of strategic priorities, which are a number of projects that we hope to do. At the end of this month, the 27th of October, we will have our quarterly general meeting in Zoom format. That's something we can do nowadays. And we will ask our members, all of them, to give their opinion on priorities that we want to work on. But then we will also ask them to participate in the action groups that are related with them. So yes, we do want to work closer with the government, because when our members communicate better with us, we will be able to present to the government on a more regular basis what are our developing wishes and what are our reactions to now the relaunch of tourism in the country.
Yes, thank you. Mando?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are happy to make contributions on national issues, particularly where there is specific relevance to our function as a chamber. We're always mindful that we're a member service organization, so whatever representations we make, be those public or private, have to be reflective of the consensus view of our members. Now we represent a diverse group, so there won't always be consensus. But what we try to do, which I think is another important role, is where consensus does not exist, can we bring the stakeholders to the table so we have a meaningful discussion and move closer to a middle ground? And that's what we've used our platforms like the Eggs and Issues Breakfast and the Chone It Luncheon to do. You know, most recently we had a very controversial issue about electoral reform, and we were able to host a very productive session there where we brought in members of the private sector, members of the Electoral Commission and other stakeholders to discuss this whole process and share ideas and exchange information so that we're closer to talking to each other and collaborating as opposed to talking about each other and, you know, being unproductive.
Thank you. All right. Well, with the impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector and the economy, clearly you'll have to rethink, you have to innovate and also be creative. What differences in approach, though, can we expect from the DHTA and, of course, the DIC going forward?
Yeah, so there has to be a focus on improving our agility. Certainly things are changing and changing at a faster pace than we're used to. So we don't have the luxury, as I said, of sitting around, and we have to be responsive to those changes. And part of our role as the Chamber of Commerce is to engage all stakeholders, not just the businesses to say, you have to be more agile, but the government, for example, and customs and port, and all these other stakeholders to realize that as things are changing around us, we cannot demand the same thing of the parties that we transact with. So we ourselves have to be willing to be flexible and be agile and be responsive to these new challenges as well. So it takes an effort on all of our parts, and that's what we'll be lobbying for.
Sure.
My thinking goes a little in the same lines, somewhat in the same lines. I think that it is important now with the modern communication tools and the way of working that we learn to change our wishes into projects. And a project for me means it has a project description, it has a timeline, and it also has a budget. And I have been talking with the board, especially that budgets do not have to come from the government. We as entrepreneurs, we don't want to be the ones saying, government, can you please give money? No, no, no. We need to look at budgets and say, where in the world, because the world is now so much smaller, where in the world can money be found for these budgets? There are grants available. There are 8 organizations and countries with 8 possibilities available. For us, as a small DHTA, we cannot always easily get access to them, and we may have to come to our Minister of Tourism, we may have to come to the Cabinet and say, can you help us? Here is a project clearly described, this is a time plan, and this is a budget that we are looking for. Can the government help us find international funding for what we have here? In that sense, we have a different question to ask to the government than just asking for money.
Sure.
So,
Well, I'm hoping the government could ask you for money. So. Now, going forward as well, what will be some of your main advocacy issues?
One that will be there and always be there, or for a long time be there, is air access. And if you'll allow me in a moment, I could give you a few remarks that Hervé Nizar, or air access specialist, has given me. Personally, as the president of the DHTA, I really hope that in the next year we can develop one island-wide app with one island-wide booking system. And Mr. Colin Piper and I have been talking about that already. Cruise tourism. Cruise tourism is something where we really need the ministry to help us, because it's at a level that none of us as individual enterprises can do it. And an important wish, and I hope that this time will help us, this COVID time will help us, trail management. We want to rebuild all our trails, not only the Waitukubuli National Trail, but a trail management unit is something that is on our wish list.
Sure, thank you. I'll come to you in a while.
Sure.
And a telephone call. Hello. Hi. Good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm calling from the state.
Yes.
Laverne Rentals. PM, what I want to ask is, right now, as our rentals are in trouble because no rental is renting out. Now we are paying revenue on these vehicles, like licensing, insurance, and the vehicles is not going anywhere. What should we do in paying the licensing of our vehicles? Because all vehicles are just sitting. We are suffering.
Yeah. Well, you can in fact. I'll take note of this. I don't have immediate response to what I think you're expecting the response to be. I have to engage and consult on this. But you could also apply for the 1% loan at the Aid Bank as well to assist you during this challenging period and to hold your hands as things start getting better as we go along. And of course, we're hoping that with the managed experience concept that we have launched, that we can see an improvement in bookings, and of course, improvement in bookings mean more people will come in, and more people coming in mean more opportunities for all service providers. But I have taken note of your concern, which is a legitimate one, and I will examine it further. Landa, please.
Yeah, so we talked about a few things in terms of how we manage this shift towards digitization. Hans mentioned disaster risk management and so on, and we've done a lot of work with that. We've partnered with CDMA and UNDRR on that front, and we will continue, and it sounds like we need to incorporate DHTA in those plans as well. Another thing that we really want to get to, I talked about information sharing and using information to guide decisions. There is a lag in terms of data availability in Dominica. It's something that we truly need to address to empower organizations like ourselves, like the government, like business owners, like potential investors, to make informed decisions and have real-time relevant information about the performance of the economy, and to have meaningful discussions about that as well. Because, I mean, you hear competing views all the time. Yeah. I say to people all the time, I can walk down the street and run into one person who has a very positive view and another person who has a very negative view, but I don't have any objective data against which to position that view. So we really need to get to a point where we're doing a lot better in that context, and that is something that I want the Chamber to work closely with the government to actually achieve. Another thing that we're looking at doing is raising our advocacy to a different level. So we formed a Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, I don't know if you're aware, which now spans 20 countries with 21 chambers.
1 second, and
Sure.
let's take a caller before. Hello, caller, please. Hello? Hi.
Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Yeah, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Great show, Mr. President. I have a question. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
In an effort to assist small businesses, bus drivers, etc., facilitators, one is who promised to the state bank a few months ago, and persons were encouraged to take advantage of the low interest rate of 1%. To date, only a few have received this assistance, and there are many applications sitting at the aid bank, including mine. Can you inform or confirm to the public that, in fact, sufficient funds were given to the institution to facilitate this process?
Well, the simple answer to the question is yes. Obviously, you know, this is, you have scores of people applying. One has to go through the vetting process, as I understand it. And as time goes by, checks have been issued. I'm not sure about the few, but I know quite a number of people have, individuals and businesses have benefited. My wish would have been for the number of people who would have benefited in this period would have been higher, but I don't necessarily agree that it is a few. A few really is less than 10 or less than 20, and certainly I know quite a number of people have in fact benefited. There are some issues where people apply for support on support to purchase items, and they would bring their invoices, but they expect the check to be written to them so that they could get the cash. So there are a lot of little issues there that the bank is addressing. But the bank is listening, and I'm sure the financial secretary is also listening, and we'll take note of your challenge and so on. And I think also we need to improve on our communication with the applicants. You know, so if your application is approved, then there should be a dedicated communication method of reaching to people or to give people an update on where your application stands. And I think that is one of the challenges in the government system. We don't communicate sufficiently or properly with our clients and our customers, and it's something that we really need to work on. But we take note of your question. Lando, please, sorry.
Yes, so I was sharing that we formed recently the Caribbean Chambers of Commerce, CARICHAM for short. It's 21 chambers across 20 countries, and what that is doing is broadening our advocacy capacity to a level that it hasn't been before. And that translates into so many more opportunities for trade for our members. So, for example, we'll host something on October 26th, where the Cuban Chamber will speak about what to look for in able to in order to be able to do business in Cuba and to trade with Cuban entities. There is also active discussion now at the CARICOM Secretariat level where we're talking about how we can improve trade among member countries. And Dominica's chamber, who, by the way, held the chairmanship in the inaugural year, it's now passed to Trinidad. I'm very proud of that. Will obviously benefit, and its members will benefit as well from those opportunities to trade.
Sure. Thank you. There's a question from WhatsApp, and it says there are 30 certified hotels, guest houses, and cottages available. There's a booking line on the website. Could we have a booking desk available at the airport so we can reduce the pressure on the government facility, giving the travelers a more enjoyable experience? Hans?
I'm very happy with the question.
Okay.
Because what DHTA has been able to do in the past 3 weeks is to create what we call for the moment a DHTA booking line. Now, this is by far not the system that I'm talking with Mr. Colin Piper about, the real big app and great system that we hope to have in the future. But we have indeed all the guest houses together. There is a link that we can distribute, and we have a person from DHTA who is at the moment full-time giving her time to talk to potential bookers, who talks with the guest houses, what do they have available, what are the rates, and we have already been able to create bookings for several visitors to Dominica, on their way to Dominica, even some already at the airport, to give them their quarantine facility other than government quarantine. It's not perfect, but it is functioning.
Excellent. We have no calls. But so, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for making the time. We appreciate your presence here in Dominica. You're part of us, and you've invested in our country, created jobs, and bringing in foreign exchange. So we're very grateful to yourself and your wife for your presence in Dominica, and in particular in Portsmouth. And of course, your presidency of the DHTA is at a very challenging time, but I believe that by working together, with a collaboration, we can certainly overcome these challenges and see a much brighter future, not only for the tourism industry, but for the country as a whole. Do you have any special messages to your membership or to the country as a whole?
It is a very challenging time indeed, but honestly, I like the challenge that is there. In my years that I lived and worked in France and in Barcelona, in Spain, my profession was business builder. And I believe that the experience that I've gathered over the years in my home country, the Netherlands, and other European countries, I hope that I can invest some of that knowledge into the tourism industry in Dominica. It's the most beautiful country in the world. It has great friendly people. It has potential. We have a government that wants to work with us. All the circumstances apart from COVID are positive. We just have to work hard all together. Everybody has to take their own responsibility, entrepreneurs, and we will rebuild tourism in Dominica together.
And thank you very much. I also want to place on public record our appreciation to the government of Netherlands. They were very, very helpful at the time of Erica and Maria. Very, very strong partners. They reached out to us and were extremely, extremely helpful, especially with the provision of helicopters to ferry supplies and people across the country.
Thank you.
Lando, you're a young man, and you certainly hoping that the young people of Dominica can look up to you and emulate your achievements. As being the country manager of a very important financial institution, the president of the DIC. And so I personally I have great admiration for your success, and I wish you all the best during your tenureship as the president of the DHTA. Any final words to the public?
Just to say that this is a challenge that will take all of our efforts. we don't have the luxury of looking to other persons or institutions for a solution. Everyone has to play their part. I will borrow the tourism tagline and say, this challenge is everyone's business. Let's pull together, let's share ideas. I love the caller that chimed in with a few ideas, because there's no central point where all the solutions will come from. And not everything will be implementable, but if we talk, we can figure out what may work and assist us through this thing. So everyone, let's make an effort to get through this together.
And talking like this is always much more beneficial than shouting across the airwaves.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. I believe it has been a wonderful engagement of the DHT and DIC, and of course we look forward to welcoming them back at some opportunities where we can have a review or evaluation of the managed experience concept, and of course some of the many important initiatives that the DIC is working on for its membership, and of course to the overall benefit of our country. I shall take a short break, and we shall return for the second segment of the program. Thank you very much.
Le ou senti ou pral estenye ou bien tousse, couvri bouche ou, empêcher partager virus. Peut-être ou kon sa déjà, mais façon ou couvrir bouche ou très important. Couvrir nez ak bouche ou ak kout ponyet ou. Ak papier hygiénique, c'est pas ak main. Jetez papier hygiénique là immédiatement après laver main. En aide suspend gaye germe microbe. Songez, santé ou c'est responsabilité ou.
A message by the Health Promotion Unit of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and New Health Investment, Dominica.
We are in the hurricane season. Here are some tips to keep your families and communities safe. Before a hurricane, ensure that you know your emergency shelters. Contact the Office of Disaster Management for information on shelters closest to you. Have disaster supplies on hand, non-perishable canned food and water, portable battery-operated radios, flashlights and extra batteries, essential medicines, first aid kits, cash and bank cards. In the home, protect your windows. A low-cost approach is to put up plywood panels. Trim branches away from your home and cut all dead or weak branches on any trees on your property. Check into your home and auto insurance. Confirm that policies are valid and coverage is appropriate. Make arrangements for pets and livestock. Develop an emergency communication plan. Make sure that all family members know what to do. Teach family members how and when to turn off gas, electricity, and water. During a hurricane watch, listen to the radio or television for hurricane progress reports. Avoid open flames such as candles and kerosene lamps as a source of light. If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when electricity is restored. Store drinking water in clean jugs, bottles, and cooking utensils. During a hurricane warning, if you need to evacuate your home, lock up and go to the nearest shelter. Take blankets or sleeping bags to the shelter. Listen constantly to a radio or television for official instructions. Store valuables and personal papers in a waterproof container on the highest level of your home. Stay inside, away from windows and glass doors.
Welcome back. Feel free to call. Number is 225-3400 and 611-3400. I want to speak on a couple points. The first being on the international airport. As you know, we're making arrangements to build our international airport in Dominica. We have a national committee in place, and I have since added representatives from the DIC and the DHTA to sit on the committee, and also Domlec and Duwasco, and we also have an experienced former pilot on the committee. Every effort has been made. We are continuing our negotiations with property owners with a view to settling a mutually acceptable price for their lands and properties. The caller, someone called earlier and asked whether land could be given to him in exchange of lands that the government is acquiring for the airport. The answer to that is yes. We are in fact swapping lands for land in many instances based on the request of the property owner. I am told there's a caller. Hello, please. This person went on. The other thing I want to remind us about is for us not to get what I want to call COVID-19 fatigue. I know it's a long haul. You know, we've been dealing with this since February, March of this year. There are restrictions, there are guidelines, there are protocols. And as we see in many countries, people are a bit fatigued. We have to continue to be vigilant. We have to continue to be mindful of the protocols and the guidelines set forth by the Ministry of Health. It's important for us to do that, to protect ourselves and to protect the country. So far, we've been doing a pretty good job as a country, as a nation, to manage COVID-19 while at the same time open up the economy to allow business activities to get back to near normal as possible. You've heard us speak about the managed experience concept, where we allow tourists to come into a country under certain guidelines, all in an effort to stimulating and boosting activity within the tourism industry, so that our people can move to full-time employment, move from the 2 and 3 days that many of them are currently subjected to, and we can have foreign exchange coming in. Clearly, the hotel owners, the property owners have had a rough time, not only in Dominica, but the world over. And I believe whatever we can do as a country to ensure that there can be a responsible approach towards managing COVID-19 and at the same time allowing for economic activity, we should pursue this as vigorously as possible, obviously with all of the protocols and guidelines necessary. Now, I would like to share with us, some perspectives, and about the country and the approach that we're taking. And one has to recognize that we have been, as a government, been very sturdy and systematic and strategic in our approach to the development of this country. And our track record over 20 years can speak to this. I mean, when we came into office, we had to address a structural challenge of the economy or finances. And it took us about 6 years to successfully overcome this challenge. It was a tough undertaking because we introduced a number of taxes, impositions on the people. We cut the wage bill in a dramatic way. People lost their jobs at the time. But we always felt that it was a difficult thing to do, but necessary for the long-term benefit of the country. And I'm saying this to us to juxtapose it against the natural disasters which we have had in Dominica, a number of them, and also external shocks. And just to name a few of the disasters, I'm not going to go name all of them, but the main ones. The 2013 Ophelia, 2013, the December trough, 2015, Erica, 2017, Maria, and in between that we had the financial crisis from 2008, which went as far as 2014, 2015, and then we had the oil crisis, and we had many wars in the Middle East being fought. All of these are external shocks impacting on the economy of Dominica. And what the structural adjustment which we put in place and the fiscal policies which we introduced then and which we continue with over up to today in terms of our fiscal policies are what really have helped us in many respects to cushion the impact. And because of the strong fiscal policies, we always had the opportunity to save for rainy days. So, for example, when Erica came, the government had a significant amount of funds at its disposal to respond to Erica. In similar fashion with Hurricane Maria. Before the international community was able to help us, we had to help ourselves for an extended period of time. And luckily we had some funds, both in the economic citizenship account and also in the international airport development account, where we were able to use some of these funds to help the farmers to get back to the farms, to help people fix their homes, to buy food, to buy medicine, to buy building materials, to clear the roads. I mean, clearing of the roads costs a significant chunk of money to respond to these natural disasters. Now, 226% of your GDP impacted, a small country, an open economy, very vulnerable economy. No one expected us to rebound. Then we have COVID-19. Nobody expected this. As I said last time, the IMF was projecting a 5.5% growth for Dominica, following on the previous year a very impressive growth rate. And so they had us successive years with very high growth rates that we've never seen in our history as a nation. We were able to see this from 9.7% to 5.8 and 5.5 in 2020, and all because of the government's policies and programs and investments. Because when Maria came, one of the decisions we took, as you know, we had this 12-point plan, which we introduced literally days after the hurricane, to ensure that we did not slide into a particular situation, as has been the case in many countries that have experienced natural disasters. And as time went by, we decided to restructure the Citizenship by Investment program, for example, which was the main source of revenue for this government and previous governments, non-tax revenue. And we restructured it to enhance the transparency of the program, two, to enhance the security of the program by way of the enhanced due diligence processes, and the management and oversight of the CBI program. With this, we introduced the real estate arm of it, and as a result, we've seen a number of hotels that have been agreements that have been entered into. We now have internationally branded hotels, 5-star hotels in our country. Some of them have been completed, others are under construction. And an independent study that was done gave some statistics on the impact these hotels would have on the economy of Dominica when fully functional. You're talking about significant foreign exchange and domestic tax revenues as a result of these hotels. But clearly we've been impacted and set aside by COVID-19. And in the process, we have sought to reduce taxes. And I accept that we need to continue efforts towards reducing the tax burden on our citizens. But one has to appreciate, we increased the tax threshold from $12,000 to $30,000 a year. And which means that everybody benefits. Those who make $30,000 or less don't pay any taxes in Dominica. Those who make $30,000 or more, your first $30,000 is tax-free. So if your annual income is $40,000, you only pay income tax on the $10,000, because the first 30 is tax-free. And so a number of people who are removed from the income tax, a significant percentage of our population don't pay income tax, and another percentage that pays pays, a few $100 or less than $100 a month and so forth. And we had started the process of reviewing our income tax regime with a view on my hope would be at some point in the future, if our fiscal space and the advice that we get from the IMF expert would be to eliminate income tax altogether at some point down the road, or introduce a flat rate across the board. But we'll wait for the report. We don't want to preempt it to see what they're saying in respect to this. We also removed the income tax on pensions. Prior to 2005, pensioners' pensions were taxed. And I was totally flabbergasted by this. I couldn't believe that people who would have worked for so many years as school teachers, as policemen, as teachers, as nurses, people who would have made their contributions in the private sector, and they're now on retirement, having worked for 30, 40 years under difficult circumstances, that their pensions were being taxed. And I immediately took this to Cabinet as the Minister of Finance and requested that Cabinet approves for us to go to Parliament to waive the income tax on pensioners. And this has been done, and so nobody pays pensions in Dominica. We have spent tens of millions of dollars. I believe there was one period, it may have been about a 5-year period, where as Minister of Finance I made available to DUASCO some $99 million to invest in the improvement of water systems in Dominica. So, for example, we have these beautiful twin communities of Girodale and Eggleston, which never had a water system. And I recognize why, and also Castle Comfort. Castle Comfort had a private system that could not supply Castle Comfort properly or adequately. But Eggleston and Girodale never had a water system. And and then we spent in excess of $7 million, and I think there was a cost overrun there, because we had to go deeper down, and plus we had to build up a pump room and generators and so forth. So there was a cost overrun there. But this investment, you'll never see a return on this because this is a social investment. Water is important for a number of reasons. We introduced here the sewage system where we spent over $50 million to put a new sewage system. This is why you no longer see feces in our streets anymore, because we have a proper sewage system. But we have to invest heavily in this. And the number of communities in North and Marigot, a new water system. You're talking about places like Shoreford in the valley, where there's no water, there were no water systems. And we've had to spend a significant amount of water, improving the A1 water supplies for Roseau and the general Roseau area, where we spent a significant sum in building new facilities, I think over $25 million, new water tanks at Mont Bruce, new water systems, new filtration systems at Antrim, in excess of $25 million. And we're still spending monies there, and a project is still ongoing in the A1 water system. And the list goes on, the entire West Coast from Capuchin all the way down to Salisbury, a comprehensive water system was introduced. Obviously, it was impacted by Erica and to some extent by Maria as well, but we have been able to repair the damage and building water tanks across the country. So we've been able to do that. We also launched an initiative to eradicate pit latrines in Dominica. We spent millions of dollars eradicating pit latrines in Dominica. More than 20% of our population had pit latrines at the time. And we were able to eradicate a significant percentage of pit latrines in Dominica. And of course, housing, building homes for families across Dominica, an initiative that continues today. So what we have done over the past decade really is to set the foundation of stabilizing and improving the economy. We're creating an environment for small businesses to thrive. We have literally thousands of small businesses Many of them are not known because, as we know, sometimes when people are employed themselves or they have a business, sometimes they say they're not employed, they're unemployed, because we have in our minds, as we've been taught, that we have to be employees and not employers. And so many people who are employers don't see themselves as being self-employed and so forth. Our road network, I mean, if you were to have a flashback of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago, one could appreciate the conditions of our roads in Dominica. We can see the remarkable improvement in our road network. Of course, natural disasters have impacted us. We've had to invest and reinstate and replace destroyed and damaged infrastructure as we go along. We've also had to invest heavily in education, not only in creating more educational opportunities for our young people, but creating access for people. We move with great speed on universal access to secondary education. We move with great speed to the creation of the State College to address the inequalities that existed in terms of access to education. More of our young people have access to universities today. If every one of us in this country who now has a degree would ask ourselves, did I have a degree in 2004? And you will get to know how many people we have provided scholarship. And I'm only talking about between 2000 and 2004. I'm talking 2004. One would have to appreciate the number of people whom we facilitated to get university degrees. With the State College, I remember this lady, she was in the public service. Clearly she would have been in her 40s because she's now retired. And she said her dream was always to become a nurse, but never had the opportunity to access the nursing school for a number of reasons. And this lady left her administrative job in the public service, and as a result of the creation of the State College, was able to enroll in nursing program and became a nurse. And there are many such success stories across Dominica. And I think sometimes we need to highlight these things, because the only way we can allow young people to be motivated, to think positively, to let young people know that they can achieve, is by us highlighting people's successes, and so that our people can look to a better future, to understand that notwithstanding your personal challenge, notwithstanding the challenges confronting the country, if you apply yourself, if you remain committed to hard work, if you remain diligent, you can certainly achieve great things for yourself and for your family, and indeed for the country. As I mentioned, hotels and even issue of the airport, we had to introduce night landing. We spent a significant sum on upgrading the now Douglas Chelsea Airport. Massive earth movement supported by the government of Venezuela, the complete overhaul, refurbishment, reconstruction of the terminal building supported by the European Union, and a significant amount of our own funds were expended on improving the airport, introducing night landing. Has night landing served us well? Absolutely, it has served us well. My hope would have been that we should have had night landing way before I became the Prime Minister of the country. But the reality is, I was charged with the responsibility of introducing night landing into Dominica. And so we have been able to invest, as I said, into hotels. The existing hotel operators, the pioneers, we salute them. With the CBI program, we have been able to sign agreements with many developers to build hotels. And so the number of hotel rooms have increased and are increasing. And this is why we believe that it is now for us to grasp the opportunity and the possibility of us having our international airport. I believe that the presence of international airport in Dominica would help secure the investments that we've made, not only in tourism, but in agriculture. We are, in fact, the breadbasket of the chain of islands. And I believe if we can enhance our transportation means, we can certainly take greater advantage of the markets. The point is, Dominica is a beautiful country. Dominica has a lot to offer discerning visitors to our country. We are unique in many ways. We are peaceful, we are safe. We have seen how we manage pandemics. We